biggest rising stars of the 90s and 2000s, were then mysteriously disappeared from Hollywood screens. The public remembered him as a performer of carefree comedic roles, while his real life was full of dramas. What happened to Brendan Fraser? Why did he almost stop acting in movies, and what helped him make a triumphant comeback? Today on the Truth Chronicles channel, we'll talk about the difficult fate of Brendan Fraser. Get comfortable, and let's get started. Brendan James Fraser was born on December 3, 1968 in Indianapolis. He was the youngest of 4 sons, Peter Fraser and Carol Mary Genereux. His mother was a saleswoman, and his father was a former journalist who later worked in the diplomatic service of the Canadian Ministry of Tourism. Because of his father's work, the family constantly moved, so young Brendan changed many homes and schools during his childhood, which made him often start over and rethink himself in new places. The Frasers traveled around the USA, also lived in Canada, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. Being new among children is always difficult, and Brendan experienced it to the fullest. At the age of 13, he got into a new school where newcomers were subjected to cruel pranks, which were considered initiation in that system. He was dragged out of bed, put into the trunk of a car, and taken to a playground where he was tied up with a pillowcase over his head. They ripped my pajama top off of me and tried to rip the bottom off, but I kicked some guy in the head. Firecrackers were thrown at me. Horrible. The car took off and I realized I was tied up outside of the local girls' school. When I got loose, I ran back to the dormitory and, the nice guys, they gave me the house tie. I got made. Brendan became interested in acting in his teens. During the Christmas holidays in London, he went to the famous West End Theatre. There, the boy saw the famous musical Oliver, which was based on Charles Dickens' novel Oliver Twist, as well as other productions such as Jesus Christ Superstar and The Mousetrap. What he saw captivated him, later becoming something much more than just a childhood dream. That's how I wanted to tell the stories that I read as a kid. I didn't know how I was going to go about doing that. I didn't even know it was a real job necessarily, but it was meaningful to me. While living in Seattle, the boy began to take part in theater productions. In the summer, he went to the theater school, Laughing Horse Summer Theater, which was also located in Ellensburg, Washington. And after graduating from school in 1987, Brendan entered the Cornish College of the Arts in Seattle, where he graduated in 1990. In college, Fraser admired the acting of British classics Ian McKellen, studying video recordings of his Shakespearean performances. During his studies, the young man also worked part-time as a juggler in a department store during the holiday weekend and simulating combat scenes in a bulletproof vest. After college, Brendan planned to attend Southern Methodist University in Texas for a Master of Fine Arts. But on a trip to university in his mother's borrowed Chevrolet Spectrum, he made a stop in Los Angeles. Fraser happened to be in Hollywood just in time, as it was the very beginning of a season during which television producers prepared to launch the pilots of new shows. Speaking about those times, Fraser recalled, "Often I would go and sit on the beach at Will Rogers State Park in the sand where it's very cold and damp. I'd stare at the waves and do that dramatic thing of asking, what am I going to do with my life?" And the decision was made. Instead of the university, he stayed in Hollywood and started going to auditions. And over the next 1.5 years, he got roles in several TV movies, including Guilty Until Proven Innocent McMartin Sheen, where he played Bobby McLaughlin, a guy accused of murder he didn't commit. His next film job was the movie Dogfight, in which Fraser played the episodic role of Sailor Number 1. They gave me a sailor outfit along with some other guys, and we did a punch-up scene with some Marines. And I got my Screen Actors Guild card and an extra $50 for the stunt adjustment because they threw me into a pinball machine. I think I bruised the rib, but I was like, that's okay, I'll take it. I could do it again. If you want, I'll break it. If you want me to do it again. Later, this readiness to perform dangerous stunts, risking his own health, played a bad joke with the actor, but then it still had been a long way from that. The first fame came to Fraser quite quickly. In 1992, he took parts in films that made him popular. He starred in Encino Man, a comedy directed by Les Mayfield, where he played a caveman who came from the Ice Age into the modern world. About this role, Brendan jokingly said that during the audition, he depicted him fighting a plant. All jokes aside, he really impressed the film creators with how well he managed to portray a person who found himself in a new, completely incomprehensible and alien conditions. And he did it without saying a word. Therefore, he was cast without hesitation, having left Ben Stiller without that part. But Fraser did not want to take on this role because at that time he was auditioning for School Ties, for a serious, dramatic role which was much more interesting for him than playing in the comedy. One phone call that came from my agent's office was, "Listen, I heard he's testing for School Ties. Tell him we'll offer him the part of the caveman if he doesn't." But I knew where my priorities lay, and I wanted to do School Ties a great deal. But the producers were persistent and were persuading Fraser for a long time, not wanting to look for someone else. And in the end, he agreed. And he took his training seriously to play his character as well as possible.
Buster Keaton and Chaplin and the silent film stars and more contemporary living stage clowns like Bill Irwin, actors who whose choices were made all physically, always out of objective. What do I need to do to get to that place? Get around this alligator and don't go back. And you have to think in circuitous lines, but straight ones at the same time. And you have to really, you have to be fearless.
Critics did not like the film, but it turned out to be a favorite among the audience. For example, on CinemaScore, it was rated A. The audience's love was demonstrated even by the box office. The film earned almost $41 million, against a budget of only $7 million. But despite this, no wonder Brendan was so resistant to playing Link, because it was after this role that he began to be offered comedic characters of a similar type, which were not too attractive for the actor. He was longing for something more serious, such as the role of David Green in the dramatic film School Ties, directed by Robert Manpel, in which he did get the part. They hired me, but I couldn't believe it. I was constantly expecting someone to walk up to me and hand me a dish towel and say, "Get back into the kitchen, Fraser." I hope I never lose that. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, who were still little known at the time, became Brendan's partners on the set. The movie was about a Jew who entered a prestigious school with anti-Semitic attitudes. Speaking about this job, Fraser mentioned that the years he spent at a boarding school came in handy for it. He was unable to fit into a world where rivalry between the school's various dormitories was only encouraged, making the students like gangs of gangsters in suits and ties. I had to do this project because it would help exorcise some of the ghosts that lingered from boarding school, and my memories were rekindled when I was on location in those hallowed halls with plaques all over the place and those well-dressed, good-looking men walking around who were supposed to be the future of the world. Boarding school is creepy and seductive all at the same time. I never felt that I had a grip on it, but this role gave me another crack at it, and I got the opportunity to re-examine my past. The film failed at the box office, grossing less than $15 million against a budget of $18 million, and received mixed reviews from critics. But the well-known critic Roger Ebert spoke very warmly about Fraser's performance, noting that he was the driving force of the movie. Such a rapid rise at the very beginning of his career opened up new opportunities for Fraser, but we can't say that he immediately managed to take advantage of it. After a successful start, the actor starred in not-so-successful comedies such as 20 Bucks, Younger and Younger, With Honors, Airheads, and The Scout. After the great success of Encino Man, such a bias towards comedy roles seemed quite logical, but could this choice be considered a good one? After all, for a long time, it did not bring any dividends to the actor, and he preferred to receive more serious roles outside the boundaries of the already existing image. The 1995 film The Passion of Darkly Noon by director Philip Ridley stood out from this series. Unlike the previous films, this was a thriller in which Fraser played the role of Darkly Noon, a young man raised from birth in an ultra-conservative Christian sect. The picture received mixed reviews from critics, but some of them praised Fraser positively. Over time, the film gained recognition and even made it to the top 10 most underrated films in 2014, according to the Daily Telegraph. During the same period, Brendan met his future wife, Apton Smith. It happened during the celebration of the Independence Day of the United States, July 4, 1993, at a party organized by Winona Ryder. The couple got married 5 years later in 1998. They had 3 sons. Apton Smith was also an actress, playing in such films as Fried Green Tomatoes, Reality Bites with the same Winona Ryder, and in George of the Jungle with Fraser. I knew I could combine my personal and professional ambitions and have a friend to be within her. Fraser continued to act, as next works were the vague melodrama Mrs. Winterbourne, another comedy Glory Days, in which he again crossed paths with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon in the supporting role, and the drama The Twilight of the Golds. Success finally returned to the actor in 1997 when another comedy with his participation, George of the Jungle, was released. The film director Sam Weisman was based on the 1967 cartoon of the same name and was created as a parody of Tarzan. In it, Fraser played the main role, George, a man who grew up in the jungle and was raised by monkeys. For this movie, Brendan had to work hard in the gym to create a muscular body. After all, his character was wearing only a bandage on his hips. Besides working in the gym, the actor had to go on a strict diet with a minimum amount of carbohydrates, which evened my memory problems. I would drive home after work and stop to get something to eat. I needed some cash one day and I went to the ATM and I couldn't remember my PIN number because my brain was misfiring, banging on the thing. I didn't eat that night. Another problem was the fact that Fraser performed the stunts in this film by himself. During one of them, when the actor had to jump from a big height, he was injured. There were also curiosities on the set. Many animals took part in the filming, including lions, monkeys, and an elephant. And Brendan's partner in some scenes was a little monkey, Mr. Binks, who caused many problems due to its difficult temper. In one of the scenes, it was supposed to whisper something in the ear of Fraser's character, but as a result, everything turned into complete madness.
He stuck his tongue so far into my eardrum. And I was like, come on. And he got mad. Rips off his fur bikini. Oh, no. Wait for it. Disappears into the rafters. Starts tearing apart the set deck. There's flowers, all kinds of crap flying around the place. And yeah, he was having a monkey moment. And the trainer came out, was like, stop that right now, Mr. Binks. No! No!
Another hilarious situation occurred during the filming of the scene in which George rescued a skydiver who got entangled in the piers of the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge. This scene used a parachutist dummy that was rigged up in the middle of the day, and this led to a stoppage of traffic on both sides of the bridge. I had the TV on, and Oprah got interrupted because there was a special news report with helicopters saying a parachute is dangling on the bridge, and I'm going, wait a minute. I'm looking at the helicopters and TV. Somebody didn't pull a permit. Somebody's going to get in trouble with the mayor's office. As a result, the movie did not cause much admiration among critics, although some of them spoke favorably of the film's ability to laugh at itself. But the most important thing was that the audience really liked it. This was reflected in a great box office success. With a budget of $55 million, it grossed almost $175 million. What's your favorite Fraser film, and why? Write in the comments. We read everything. Trying to consolidate this success, Fraser tried himself again in a more serious project. His next work was the drama Gods and Monsters, directed by Bill Condon. In this film, Brendan worked together with his old idol, Ian McKellen. It was a long-time dream of the actor to play with him. A few years before the film's shooting in 1995, he auditioned for the movie Richard III, in which McKellen was not only an actor but also a co-writer of the script. But Fraser failed to get into this film, although McKellen noticed him. He sent me a handwritten note saying he didn't have a place for me, though he could have used some of my much-needed enthusiasm, which was a very generous thing to say. And after 3 years, they still played together. Gods and Monsters told about the fictional last days of the life of the famous director James Whale. Fraser played the role of his gardener, Clayton Boone. The film was a huge success with critics who also praised the acting very positively. Fraser was noticed as a still unrecognized but truly outstanding actor. The film was nominated for numerous awards, including the Academy Awards, where it was honored in 3 categories and won Best Adapted Screenplay Award. But the film aroused almost no interest among the audience, earning only $6.5 million at the box office against a budget of $10 million. After this film, Fraser again returned to his usual role, a person who saw the modern world for the first time, playing in Hugh Wilson's Blast from the Past. In this comedy, he played a man who grew up in an underground storage after a nuclear attack which left him completely unadapted to the real world. This project was, again, unsuccessful. With a budget of $35 million, the film only made $40 million. Although now this naive, cute movie doesn't seem so bad, it is usually added to the top of Brendan's best works. But the next work pushed Fraser to the top of fame, making him one of the symbols of the cinema of the late 90s and early 2000s. The film The Mummy, directed by Stephen Sommers, was released in 1999. It was a remake of the 1932 movie of the same name. Universal, which was involved in the filming, had several serious box office failures before this, such as Babe, Pig in the City. Therefore, they needed a hit that could save the studio. Because of this, the company was looking for a star actor for the main role in The Mummy. For example, it was offered by Tom Cruise, Ben Affleck, Brad Pitt, and Matt Damon, but none of them were interested in this project. In the end, the director's choice fell on Brendan Fraser, who was quite popular, having the hit George of the Jungle behind him, and he also really suited the role of RickOConnell. Director Stephen Sommers recalls, "My editor and producing partner, Bob Duxey, as soon as he read the script, he said, 'This is Brendan Fraser.' It made sense. Brendan's a big, strapping guy, and he has a great sense of humor. The filming took place in difficult conditions. In Marrakesh and the Sahara Desert, constant heat threatened a film crew with dehydration, and even more risks were created by desert inhabitants, snakes, scorpions, and spiders. Several members of the team were even bitten, due to which they had to be airlifted to the hospital. They sent a memo out on the call sheet describing a type of snake that, I think, it had yellow dots on it. They said, if you see this kind of snake, do not go near it, walk or run away, because at best, if it bites you, maybe they'll amputate your limb. Anyway, there I was, pissing down a rock, and I looked down, and there's the yellow dot snake. I was like, locked. I just ran for it." Not only animals and insects, but also people posed a danger. While filming in Morocco, all members of the main cast had insurance against kidnapping, but Stephen Sommers decided not to tell the actors about this detail until the end of filming. Fraser was also in mortal danger when he was nearly strangled for real while filming RickOConnell's execution scene. So I thought, one more take, and the camera whipped around, and I went up on the toes, and the guy holding the rope above me, he pulled it up a little higher, and I was stuck on my toes. I had nowhere to go but down, and so he was full enough, and I was going down, and then the next thing I knew, my elbow was in my ear, the world was sideways, and there was gravel in my teeth, and everyone was really quiet. But all these troubles were worth the result I was obtained. The Mummy became a box office hit, with a budget of $80 million, raising $416 million. Critics rated the film mixed, but the most important thing was that the audience really liked it. Moreover, it was even nominated for the Academy Awards for the Best Sound and the British Academy Film Awards for the Best Special Effects. But for Fraser personally, their resounding success did not continue because after it, the actor had an equally resounding failure. His next comedy film, Dudley Do-Right, which he made again with the director Hugh Wilson, became a bomb at the box office, collecting only $10 million with a budget of $22 million. Furthermore, the critics did not like it at all, and the audience ratings were quite low. The next project, released in 2000, became much more successful from a commercial point of view. Harold Ramis's romantic comedy Bedazzled fully paid for itself at the box office, earning $90 million against the budget of $40 million. But the film did not impress the critics. The ratings were mediocre. And then there was another failure, Monkey Bone, a black fantasy comedy from director Henry Selick, was a big failure. With a very serious budget of $75 million, it collected just over $7.5 million worldwide. The presence of such famous actors as Fraser and Whoopi Goldberg did not help the film. It also received poor reviews from critics and audiences. By the way, in this film, Brendan, as once in Encino Man, replaced Ben Stiller in the main role. It was up to The Mummy to correct this situation after this bitter failure. Its sequel, The Mummy Returns, was released in 2001. For the filming of the sequel, the main actors and the director were gathered again, and a new villain was added to the cast, the performer of the role of the Scorpion King, the now well-known Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who was just starting his acting career at the time, and this was his first film, and it was he, or rather the CGI model of his character, that caused quite a stir, becoming one of the most memorable episodes of the entire film due to the fact that the special effects team was given too little time to create the Scorpion King. It turned out to be of very poor quality, causing a lot of ridicule among the audience. The shooting of the same scene, in which Johnson did not even participate, was also very funny.
He and I never met in person until after the premiere at the reception afterwards, because on the day, Dwayne was a piece of tape on a stick.
Really?
Truly. To get the eye line right, someone was walking around with a stick, and he's going, oh, and we're going, oh, and and acting. Yeah, that was that was the drill. And then the movie came out.
The continuation of the franchise caused much less enthusiasm from critics than the first part, but again, very much liked by the audience. With a budget of $98 million, the film grossed $435 million worldwide, becoming the seventh highest grossing film of 2001. The Mummy's sequel success was supported by Fraser's next project, the political drama The Quiet American. The film, directed by Philip Noyce, was based on Graham Greene's novel of the same name and told about the events in Vietnam before the start of the Vietnam War. It was supposed to appear on the screens in the fall of 2001, receiving positive reviews from the audience at previews. But after the tragedy of September 11th, it was delayed for a year. This happened due to the fact that the film harshly criticized the U.S. foreign policy, which could be considered unpatriotic against the background of such tragic events. After its release, the film was well received by critics. Its main star was Fraser's partner Michael Caine, who was nominated for all the major awards. But Brendan received very positive reviews for his acting, once again demonstrating that his talent is much brighter and worth more than unsuccessful comedy roles. At the same time, in 2002, Fraser had his firstborn, son Griffin Arthur. As it turned out a little later, the boy was diagnosed with autism, which would be a great test for the family. I'm no expert on the variety of spectrum disorders. I'm a dad, and that's what I can talk about. My son Griffin has a verbal delay. He had a verbal delay at an early age. He got a diagnosis, and we were thunderstruck, as I imagine many of you in the audience here can comprehend or understand because of the surprise that came with not knowing what to do. Of course, the parents had periods when they tried to fix the boy's condition, but over time they still managed to adapt through his peculiarities and learn to understand his needs. Because of the beauty of his spectrum, called a disorder if you will, I disagree with you, he knows nothing of irony. He doesn't know what cynicism is. You can't insult him. He can't insult you. He's the happiest person and is, in my life and many others, and also the manifestation of love, Brendan said. The eldest son's condition taught Brendan to understand and respect people with autism, so now during public events, he always tries to communicate with his fans who also have autism. As the actor later admitted, parenthood taught him to love more and more every day. Later, 2 more sons were born in the Fraser family. In 2004, it was Holden Fletcher, and 2 years later, in 2006, Lightland Francis. In the same period, one of the most terrible events in Brendan's life happened, though he remained silent for 15 long years. In the summer of 2003, during an event organized by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, which hosted the Golden Globe Awards, he met with the then president of the association, Philip Burke. In the middle of the crowded room, they exchanged greetings, and then, according to Burke, he jokingly pinched Fraser's butt. But for the actor, everything looked completely different. His left hand reaches out, grabs my ass cheek, and one of his fingers touches me in the taint, and he starts moving it around. I felt ill. I felt like a little kid. I felt like there was a ball in my throat. I thought I was going to cry. After that, Brendan ran out of the room without saying anything to anyone. He managed to tell this story only to his wife. The actor thought a lot about giving this publicity, but did not dare, blaming himself for what happened. Even trying to get an apology from Burke through the HFPA didn't make him feel any better, especially since Burke offered only a formal apology, not recognizing Fraser's version and emphasizing that it was a complete fabrication. I became depressed. I was blaming myself, and I was miserable because I was saying, this is nothing. This guy reached around and he copped the feel. That summer wore on, and I can't remember what I went on to work on next. After these events, everything changed for Brendan. His attitude to filming, to acting. He felt as if something valuable and important had been taken from him. This story tormented him for a long time, and Brendan dared to tell it publicly only after the start of the Me Too campaign, seeing how other people shared their experiences. When he opened up about being harassed by Burke in an interview with GQ magazine in 2018, he saw many people respond to his story. Fraser even trended on Twitter after that, and although it was a difficult experience for him, which made him feel exposed in front of everyone, at the same time, Brendan finally felt free, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from him. But at the beginning of 0 years, it was still a long way off, and Fraser had to continue working, silently keeping this difficult story inside. At that time, he was releasing the animated comedy Looney Tunes Back in Action, directed by Joe Dante. In it, the actor performed the main role of Damian DJ Drake Jr., as well as himself. Among his colleagues on the set were Steve Martin and Timothy Dalton. The movie parodied spy films and action films, received quite good reviews from the audience, but failed to beat its budget at the box office. Its script interested Fraser precisely because of the state in which he was at the time. At this point, besides the harassment incident, he was also rejected for the role of Superman in the Brett Ratner film. In the end, not only did Brendan fail to get a role in this film, it was canceled altogether and replaced by another Superman Returns, starring Brandon Routh. But for Fraser, it became a huge disappointment in himself. You feel like, I didn't measure up. Oh, I failed. And the truth is, you didn't. That's erroneous. That's wrong. It's not true. You didn't fail. You're not, but even if as I sit here and say that to you right now, I feel like, well, no, the proof's right there. What does Looney Tunes have to do with it? There was a scene in that movie where he had to punch himself in the face. It was this that became the expression of all the despair and hatred of the actor towards himself. He considered himself worthless and wanted to symbolically knock the fool out of himself without waiting for others to do it. Fraser's next project was the highly successful crime drama Crash in 2004, directed by Paul Haggis. In it, the actor played the role of the husband of Sandra Bullock's character, prosecutor Rick Cabot. By the way, it was Fraser's appearance that gave the green light to the filming. And the film turned out to be very successful from all sides. It was positively evaluated by the audience. It received very good box office. With a budget of only $6.5 million, it collected $98 million. And it also became the favorite of the Academy Awards, where it received 6 nominations and won 3 of them, as the Best Film, Screenplay, and Editing. But then the actor, again, had a streak of failures. He starred in little-noticed and not very successful films. A crime thriller, Journey to the End of the Night, which would still play an important role for Fraser in the future, the black comedy The Last Time, and the crime drama The Air I Breathe. In 2008, Fraser starred in a fairly successful project, the sci-fi action adventure Journey to the Center of the Earth. The film was directed by Eric Brethig, and Fraser's colleagues on the set were Seth Meyers and Josh Hutcherson. The film was an adaptation of Jules Verne's novel of the same name. Although critics gave the film mixed reviews, it was praised by the audience, who reinforced their commitment in cinemas. The picture collected almost $250 million against a budget of $40 million. This film used the relatively new 3D technology at the time, which was much better and didn't cause the feeling of nausea like when using glasses in the 50s. Fraser was very proud of this project.
An audience has not seen before in history. This is true. This is the first live-action, feature-length, narrative-driven, high-definition, preconceived, and delivered 3D film.
Also, many years after filming, it was revealed that Brendan helped the special effects team. They were not paid for their work due to the bankruptcy of the company that did the computer animation for the film. After learning about the situation, Fraser, who was also the film producer, conducted a public campaign that allowed the team to receive 80% of the payments after 2 years. The success of this project was again to be supported by The Mummy, the third part of which, The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, was released in 2008. But everything was wrong with this film from the very beginning. First, the director changed as Rob Cohen worked on a third Mummy instead of Sommers. Secondly, Rachel Weisz, who played the main role of RickOConnell's wife, left the project, and the story at that moment seemed to begin to outlive itself. As a result, although the film fully paid for itself at the box office, collecting $403 million against a budget of $145 million, critics did not like it, and the audience received it more coolly than other parts of the franchise. Furthermore, Fraser began to have health problems. He continued to perform most of the stunts on his own until his body simply couldn't take it anymore. As he later admitted, in order to make combat scenes in the film, he had to create something similar to an exoskeleton for himself every day from special tapes and ice packs. All this, in the end, led to serious health consequences which had to be solved with the help of surgical operations. Over the course of 7 years, Brendan had to undergo a laminectomy and vocal cord surgery, as well as a knee replacement. I felt like the horse from Animal Farm, whose job it was to work and work and work. Orwell wrote a character who was, I think, the proletariat. He worked for the good of the whole. He didn't ask questions. He didn't make trouble until it killed him. I don't know if I've been sent to the glue factory, but I've felt like I've had to rebuild it that I've built that got knocked down and do it again for the good of everyone, whether it hurts you or not. To all these difficulties were added problems in personal life. In 2007, it became known about the beginning of Brendan's divorce from his wife. It dragged on for 2 long years and ended only in 2009. But as it turned out, this was only the beginning of difficult times. A few years later, in 2013, the actor filed a request to the court to reduce the monthly amount of alimony payments, arguing that his income level has fallen sharply because invitations to roles have become much less and the level of fees has also decreased greatly. But his ex-wife, Afton Smith, accused the actor of fraud and concealment of assets worth more than $20 million and new filming contracts worth $9 million. Although Fraser rejected those claims, he still had to pay a fixed amount of $50,000 a month for 10 years. It is clear that this had an extremely negative impact on his financial situation. After the release of the third part of The Mummy, Fraser's career began to fade rapidly. His next films, the fantasy adventure Inkheart and the drama Extraordinary Measures, were not very successful with the audience and critics, and although they were not box office failures, they did not become hits either. Then it didn't get better. The 2010 family black comedy Furry Vengeance, directed by Robert Cumble, was panned by critics, many of whom called it a candidate for Worst Film of the Year, and the crime comedy Standoff, at least 2 years later, went unnoticed. Fraser's subsequent projects were a gradual slide to the bottom, with playing in minor unknown films, some of which did not even make it to cinemas. The only exception was the voice acting in the 2014 animated film The Nut Job by Peter Lepinitis. Although the critics did not like this film, it was quite favorably received by the audience, and at the box office it managed to raise almost $121 million against a budget of $30 million. As a result, over time, Fraser stopped acting in movies altogether. He only appeared on TV shows. Some of them were of very dubious quality, and Brendan, in most cases, played only minor roles in them. The phone does stop ringing in your career, and you start asking yourself why. Fraser recalled, "I bought into the pressure that comes with the hopes and aims that come with a professional life. That requires what they call thick skin, or just ignoring it. Putting your head in the sand, or gnashing your teeth and putting on your public face, or just not even meeting the public. Ignoring. Staying home, damn it. Not because I'm aloof or anything, but because I just felt I couldn't be a part of it. I didn't feel that I belonged." Fraser speculated that the poor job situation may have had something to do with the Philip Burr story that had fallen out of favor with the HFPA. There's no confirmation of this, but who knows how it could be in reality. After one of his series roles in The Affair in 2016, he gave his first interview in many years, which caused concern among many viewers. Fraser looked upset, depressed, speaking almost in a whisper. Of course, everyone assumed that he was not feeling well because of his career problems and divorce from his wife.
Thinky projects have come through my very fortunate career, and other irreverent ones too. I've relented a bit in recent years. I have 3 sons, and I needed to ensure their comfort and safety, and their mother also, the lovely and talented, my former wife, Afton.
But it turned out that the reason was completely different. Actually, sad and tragic. He had to give an interview just a few days after his mother's funeral, who died from cancer. Of course, this whole story could not but affect the actor's condition. Going to work, in between being in and out of those hospitals, that wasn't always possible. Fraser admitted, "So what I'm saying to you sounds, I hope, not like some sort of, hey, I had a boo-boo, I needed to put a Band-Aid on it, but more of an account of the reality of what I was walking around in. I changed houses. I went through a divorce. Some kids were born. I mean, they weren't born, but they're growing up. I was going through things that mold and shape you in ways that you're not ready for until you go through them." Outside of that, Fraser lived a calm, quiet life raising his sons. Although they stayed with their mother, Brendan had the opportunity to see them regularly. Of course, he paid special attention to his eldest son, Griffin. The actor settled on a remote farm in New Bedford, New York, away from the noisy and bustling big city. This place was ideal both for Brendan, who was able to relax and forget about his problems, and for his sons. Children had the opportunity to play in the fresh air, swim in the pool, relax at a hammock, jump on a trampoline, and engage in other activities. For a time, Fraser took care of a horse named Pecos, which he took from the filming of the History Channel series Texas Rising. They were filming down in Mexico, he says, when he and a horse had a shared moment of recognition, without doing too much. What's the word? Anthropomorphizing. Without pretending that the animal's a human, he looked like he needed help. Like, get me out of here, man. Griffin got along very well with the animal because the time he spent with it calmed them and made him feel better. There's something good that happens between the two of them, and even if he doesn't ride him, just give him a brush. The horse loves it, the repetitive motion that kids on the spectrum have that they love, and it just works. Unfortunately, over time, Pecos was diagnosed with incurable melanoma, due to which he had to be put to sleep. And for his career in 2018, Fraser released 2 quite high-quality series, Trust and Condor, which received good reviews from critics. The actor was praised for his performance in Trust, and his return was called very successful. The following year, he returned to the movies, although again with less expressive films. The thriller The Poison Rose with Morgan Freeman and John Travolta, as well as the crime drama Line of Descent. He also starred in a critically acclaimed superhero series Doom Patrol, playing Cliff Steele, aka Robotman. For it, Fraser was nominated for Best Actor in a Superhero Series at the 2022 Critics' Choice Super Awards. From this period begins the era of Brenaissance, or rebirth, of Brendan. And before moving on to the story of Fraser's return to Hollywood, we suggest you click the subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss new interesting videos about your favorite celebrities. Subscribe to our channel, and we'll continue our story. In 2021, Fraser had another successful film, the neo-noir thriller No Sudden Move, directed by Steven Soderbergh. It was very well received by critics, with a rating of 92% on Rotten Tomatoes and an average score of 76 out of 100 on Metacritic. But what awaited him later probably exceeded all, even the wildest expectations. The role in Darren Aronofsky's film The Whale was a new career breakthrough for the actor, demonstrating the depth and brightness of his talent. But getting into the project for Fraser was more of a happy accident because when searching for actors for the role of Charlie, he was obviously not the first one that came to Aronofsky's mind.
10 years was I couldn't figure out how to cast it. And then I stumbled on a trailer of a low-budget Brazilian movie, and Brendan had a small role in it, and he's amazing. And to be honest, though, I had never really seen any of his films. I hadn't seen George of the Jungle or Encino Man. I had seen The Mummy, but not that much. But there was something that, like a light bulb went off, and I was like, let's roll the dice.
Yes, it was shooting the little-known Brazilian film Journey to the End of the Night, which took place in the middle of the zeros or thousands that became the determining factor for Brendan to receive the role for which he was awarded an Oscar. "I'm just a lucky guy who walked into his office," Brendan said modestly. "Darren, Sadie, and I did a reading together, and if we didn't have the chemistry that we did, I'm pretty confident we wouldn't be here, because he hadn't made up his mind on whether or not he was going to make the movie until he had some semblance of whether this can work. But I felt after shooting this film and working with Darren and others closely that it elevated our standard for the care that you would put into the craft." When Fraser found out what the film would be about, he realized that the character Charlie was very close to him. Of course, the connection with his children, especially Griffin, played a huge role in his understanding of his character. He's a big kid. He's 6'5". He's got big hands and feet, a big body. I understand intimately what it is to be close to a person who lives with obesity. For the role, Brendan consulted with an anti-obesity coalition and worked with a dance instructor before filming to understand how his character would move with the extra weight. During the work process, he also had to spend 4 hours on makeup and wearing a special suit imitating Charlie's body. Fraser treated his character with great respect and warmth. He emphasized that this film was not about obesity at all, but about a lonely, traumatized person who punished himself for past mistakes by drowning out these traumas with overeating, which eventually led to serious health problems. Realizing that his health is irreparably damaged, Charlie tries to atone for his guilt before his daughter and reconcile with her while he still has time. It is redemption that Fraser calls the white whale that Charlie seeks to find, recalling Herman Melville's novel Moby Dick, or The Whale, a reference to which the film's title is based. "Once a leading man, always a leading man," Darren Aronofsky says. I really believe that. I think there's a quality to actors of his ilk. There's a magic in there that doesn't go away, especially if it hasn't had much time to shine. The movie received huge recognition immediately after the premiere, which took place at the Venice International Film Festival, where it received a 6-minute standing ovation. Brendan was moved to tears. Most critics noted Fraser's fantastic performance, although there were also negative reviews. But all this was not so important because Brendan became one of the favorites to receive the Academy Awards as the Best Actor and eventually won in this nomination. Such a triumphant return caused great public admiration. People rejoiced that Brendan, who had been a favorite of the audience for many years, despite a long period of failure, managed to get back to the top and even a little higher. The moment when the actor found out about the Oscar nomination was incredibly important for him because he was able to share it with his family.
Watching the broadcast at home in the morning, there was a knock at the door of my bedroom, and my kids were there with balloons, and they had a Carvel ice cream cake.
Oh my God, I will cry right now. That's so sweet.
It was Fudgy the Whale.
Aww. Ice cream cakes are good.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Enjoyed that one. And now it's a core memory of mine.
His sons also supported him at the ceremony. Fraser came to it with Holden and Leyland, and of course, he mentioned them in his speech. It's been like I've been on a diving expedition to the bottom of the ocean, and the air on the line has come from some people in my life like my sons Holden and Leyland and Griffin. I love you, Griffey. Besides his son, Brendan's new love, makeup artist Jean Moore, was also present at the Oscar ceremony. For the first time, she appeared with him publicly at the premiere of China in Venice, and this is the first time the actor appeared in public with a woman after divorcing his wife. It's not known for sure when this relationship began, but now Fraser feels very happy in it. Besides the Oscar, Fraser was also nominated for the Golden Globe Awards, but because of the story with Philip Burke, he refused to attend the ceremony, as he considered it hypocritical. The rise of Brendan's career continued. It became known about receiving a role in a new project in August 2021, and it was a very solid project. Martin Scorsese's killer Western crime drama, Killers of the Flower Moon, features an all-star cast. Fraser's partners on the set were Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro. The film tells the story of a series of murders that take place on indigenous lands after the discovery of oil in the 1920s. Speaking about the film, Fraser was very excited to be able to work with Martin Scorsese and also recalled his acquaintance with DiCaprio, which took place 30 years before. I saw him in Gilbert Grape and was like all of 15, 16. I was in my 20s and it was so good. Years later, he told me I was like the first person that didn't treat him like a little kid because when I met him, I didn't see a little kid. I saw a really formidable actor who was a young person, of course, but a force to be reckoned with. One of the disappointments for Brendan was the cancellation of Batgirl, based on the DC universe where he played the villain, Firefly. Due to circumstances, it was decided not to release the movie that had already been shot, but even this could not spoil the impression of Fraser's grand return to the list of the best Hollywood actors. So, the Brenaissance happened, and now everything's back to normal for Brendan Fraser, with a happy big family, a loved one, and a career that is on the rise, with millions of passionate fans and favorite hobbies. By the way, one of Brendan's biggest hobbies, which he has been interested in all his life, is photography. He loves Polaroid pictures. He's also very fond of archery. There are bags of sawdust and targets in the backyard of his house, which he likes to shoot from time to time.
When did the archery thing start for you, Brendan?
Around the time I had just come out of my third surgery, I couldn't go to the gym, and I needed to find something to focus on.
Ooh, right on it. Proof of his marksmanship.
Dumb luck.
During his life, Brendan Fraser went through a difficult path of successes and failures, high rises and catastrophic falls. He managed to prove by his own example that it is possible to return from oblivion and become someone much greater. He deserved to fully enjoy this moment of true triumph. When Brendan was asked in one of the interviews what was next, he said a slightly paraphrased quote by Herman Melville, the author of Moby Dick. "I know not what will come, but come what will, and I will go there laughing." We hope you also enjoyed walking this thorny path with Brendan Fraser. And if you want to know even more facts about his career, we suggest you click on the icon on your screen to watch another video we made about him. And hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. We say goodbye for a while, and we'll meet again in new videos. You were watching the Truth Chronicles channel. Till next time.